The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Joanne Mercier. Hello, Joanne.
Hello, everyone.
And Pat Scott. Hello, Pat.
Greetings from Texas.
So before we get into the main meat of today's show, I do have some listener feedback. I wanted to read an email from listener Cameron. And Cameron says, and you'll know why I want to read this, because Cameron says, I love the Secrets of Technology, the SQPN show, which, thank you, Cameron. But that's not the only reason I'm reading it. He goes on to say, here's a bit of feedback in reference to the Kindle/Oasis devices mentioned in the Keep Your Old Tech Alive episode. I just wanted to mention I actually bought an Oasis Kindle device, mainly because it has two buttons to flip its digital pages back and forth. In contrast, the regular Paperwhite that I had previously required swiping or tapping the screen to turn each page. I personally did not like having to swipe or tap the screen to turn pages back and forth, so to my mind, the Oasis was worth the $230. For these two buttons, to my mind, make the user experience more elegant and more like the interaction of a non-digital paper book. And that brings to mind that the old Kindles, I think the first Kindle I had physical buttons.
Right.
And I did find that I inadvertently pressed those buttons more than I inadvertently tapped the screen, but that might be just me being, clumsy. What do you guys think? Would you prefer a physical button if you have a Kindle? Would you prefer physical buttons over the tap and swipe?
I've got the Paperwhite, and I don't know. I guess because I'm used to an iPad, the swiping doesn't bother me. But sometimes if I tap it, it goes too fast. So and that just could be user error and not anything else. But I use my Kindle mostly for books. If I don't want to be disturbed by anything else, I'll pick up my Kindle and read it. But so I kind of like it. Would I want the physical button? Not if it's going to cost me $230.
Right.
Yeah, same thing here. I'm very comfortable with both the experience on an iPad and on Kindle Paperwhite. The swipe is fine. But I can understand some people have more physicality that they need
right.
that it may be helpful for them to get just one click instead of accidentally swiping twice or something.
Right. Yeah, it's a value proposition. Is it worth it to you? And so for some people, it's going to be different. I know that for me, there are times when I want to highlight something on the screen where I'll tap and hold, and it will change pages because it thinks I'm tapping to switch page. So that does get a little annoying. It wouldn't happen if it had a physical button. But thank you, Cameron, for that feedback. Because I know I did ask, why would someone buy the Oasis for more money? But there's someone for every product, and I'm glad that it worked out for you. So let's get into the meat of today's program, which is we're going to be talking about the announcements that Apple made early this week. The iPhone is the most popular phone, the most on the planet. It's the iPad is the most popular tablet out there. The Mac is still big. So these are big announcements that will apply to a lot of people. And so Apple made some announcements at WWDC, their Worldwide Developer Conference. This happens every year about this time. And they talk about the software improvements that are coming for iPhones, iPads, Macs, TV, the Apple TV, even the AirPods, CarPlay, HomeKit, and then what we can expect for some new Mac hardware coming in the future. So, but before we get started, we should probably note that most of the stuff isn't being released officially till the fall, although a public beta is a developer beta is available now. Public betas are coming in July. I think we talked about this last year, but let's reiterate. Do either of you install public betas on your primary devices?
I do. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. I guess I don't get annoyed too quickly unless it completely bricks my machine. But I like what I'm seeing, and I don't usually do it on the computer. I do it on the iPad or the iPhone, but I'm really tempted to want to put the new OS on the computer as a beta test. I really do, because it looks phenomenal.
How about you, Pat?
I typically don't do the public betas because I use my devices for business, and therefore I do not want to take any chance that they could be down for the duration. Now, if I have a spare machine that is capable of running it, then I will do that. But quite frankly, with the Macs, they tend to be more expensive, and therefore I don't happen to have extras laying around. But, if I had a second iPhone that I use for an iPod around the house, sure, I'd put it on there. But most of the time, those are not the new ones.
Right.
Yeah, and what I usually do is I choose. 1 year, I'll put the beta on the phone, but not the iPad. And then last year, I put the beta on the iPad because it was the new OS. This year, man, they just look so good. I'm so tempted.
Yeah, we'll get into the very tempting bits in a sec. But for me, I usually don't do public betas. If I did, last year, I did the iPad beta because they had those features that I really wanted to get a hold of early. That really made a difference in my productivity. But I wait until the third or fourth public beta. I don't touch developer betas. You have to be a developer anyway. But I don't even put the first or second public beta on because they're still really unstable. So I usually wait till maybe mid to late July before I even think about it. But in general, our advice is don't do it unless you really know what you're doing. We kind of know what we're doing. We know how to get ourselves out of a bad situation. Jack, who also is on this podcast, Jack Barazzini, was messaging me and said that he installed the developer beta on his iPhone, and his bank now won't let him use his banking app because it thinks it's jailbroken.
Oh dear.
So that's the sort of thing. It's the sort of risk you got to be willing to take. And he's an expert on this sort of stuff, so I'm sure he figured out a way to fix it. But that's don't do public betas in general. So let's talk about what's coming. These features that we're so dying to get, that we're willing to install public betas. Let's talk about iOS 14 and iPad OS 14. Remember last year, Apple made a distinction between the two. They're still mostly alike. There's a few differences. Let's talk first about the iOS, this new home screen with widgets. Now, Android users are already saying, you mean this thing that we've been doing for several years now? And in which Apple users say, yes, Apple may be second, but they always do it better. But, Father Corey's not here to defend the Android, so I'll
so
refrain.
You're going to do that?
Yeah, I played both sides on this one. But this home screen with widgets looks really interesting. And what it does, it lets you mix widgets, which are basically little screens from inside your apps, among the icons on your home screen. What do you guys think of this? Is this something that looks good to you? Something you think you'd use?
Yeah, I would. There's a lot of things that right now that it would be nice to have a place for it on the home screen, where instead of swiping over to the Today screen. I'm not sure how many of my clients will, but I think that us who are more forward, or shall we say, risk taking, I think this is real exciting, and it gives a lot of information right at a glance. I thought it was interesting that they said that this widget technology really was coming from the watch, because they had learned to do so many things in such a small space that kind of affected the coming of widgets.
That's an interesting idea, because I sometimes surprised at how good watch apps are at a lot of information in a little bit of space. What do you think of this, Joanne?
Well, again, they took something that was from somewhere else and made it a lot better. And that's what excites me. I forget to keep going over to the Today screen. I forget that it's there. I was so excited to get it, but I never go there. Now to have it on my front screen, home screen, when I open it up, that's going to be much better. First of all, I want the clock bigger.
Yeah.
I can't see the time on the lock screen sometimes because it fades into whatever the picture is. So be able to have and I'm not a digital person. I still like my analog. So to have that there, to have, maybe my calendar prominent saying, okay, here's really what's going on today, not what you think is going on today. And a couple of other things I use all the time because I know what I use all the time. And then go to the next screen and have the things that I use almost all the time. That's my hierarchy of things. As you go down my screens, it's the lesser things. And I could really get rid of this whole page of apps. And I'm really looking forward to being able to customize it. I think that's what Apple users have wanted all along. They don't mind the walled garden. Just let us fool around with it a little bit.
Right.
And put it where we want it.
Let me plant the roses where I want.
Well, I like the idea of that search widget being right where you could put it in the top, because a lot of times with so many apps trying to find the app, then the search right there is a real quick way to find it. And yes. I like the other things that are coming about with the app library along the same reason.
I think App Library is a hidden gem for the more general users. Like for me, I'm very anal about like everything has to go in its right folder and its right place, and this is I know where all my apps are. And then I pick up my wife's phone and I'm like, where's the settings app? Why is it on the third page in the middle? I mean, like this doesn't make any sense, and it just the stuff ends up where it ended up when it installed. Whereas the App Library is a nice way for Apple using some of its smarts to kind of say, okay, this is on the last page, so you just scroll all the way to the end, and yeah, these are all kind of game apps, and these are all kind of social media apps, and it does it for you, to organizing things for you. And I like the idea that they're helping people organize the stuff for them, because a lot of people just don't bother with that in the App Library.
I just wonder what they're going to do with Catholic apps, because Catholic apps tend to not go together. They tend to go to different things.
Yeah.
And I like to keep them together as Catholic apps. So
well,
I know
still
where
have
they
the
are.
folder capabilities.
Right, exactly. So. But I'm just dying to see where they're going to put them.
I have felt that Apple's categorizations are very broad, and so because when you first create a folder, it puts the category for that app on it. I'm like, well, that app does not seem at all like reference or productivity. It's something different. So I'd like to see them get a little more granular in their categorization. One of the things that they're going to have is smart stacks of widgets, so that just like today, again, if you swipe to the left, there's usually at the top Siri app suggestions, and it'll continue to do something along the lines where it will surface the app that you'll need at the moment that it thinks you need. So for me, every day at around 4:00, if I go there, I'll see Paprika, which is my recipe app. And other times of the day, something else will pop up. I'm not sure, like a phone app. It would be nice if I wake up in the morning, I see my calendar, and then later in the day, I'll see, I don't know, at lunchtime, it shows me the news, and, or my Kindle app or something, because I read during lunch, or that sort of thing. It will be nice to have that sort of smart surfacing of things from that screen. One other thing they mentioned is app clips. And this is a nice idea. I have a folder, I don't know about you guys, I have a folder full of parking apps, like parking meter apps. And I also have another folder of store apps that I never use. But they're there because every once in a while I'll drive into Boston, or I drive into a city near Boston, and they each have a different parking app, and I got to make sure I have the right app when I need to pay for parking. Well, the nice thing is this new app clips is, you go up and you either scan a QR code or you swipe your phone near a sign, and it has an NFC, a near field chip in it, and it will pop up. It's like a bit of a app. It's just a little stub of an app, just the functionality to do the thing you want to do, like pay for parking. I don't have to keep the app on my phone. It just comes up when I need it. And they had a real neat video in the like a commercial, an ad, in the presentation showing them doing it for various things like Panera or a scooter or all these various things where it pops up an app that lets you, like for Panera, it has a menu on it, and then you choose what you want, and then it goes away again, and then you go to the store and get your stuff. I think this could be, if if implemented well, and that's a key, is that a lot of this depends on the end, the companies implementing it well. This could be useful. Do you think?
I do, because then it will keep all these other apps that I really don't care about or only use once or twice a year off my phone.
Yep.
So
yes,
I think it's a great idea.
I do too. I think getting rid of a couple of those folders would be wonderful, and it would loosen the load on the phone. The phones have tons of storage these days, but I still want to keep it relatively clean. I don't want to fill up my phone with apps I don't use and keep it space for music or photos or whatever. Then there's one nice thing they mentioned is when Siri or a phone call or FaceTime pops up, like what happens now is it takes over your screen. And I can't tell you how many times I've been using my phone and I get a phone call and I tap. I'm trying to tap something that was on the app I was using, and I end up tapping either answer or worse, hang up. And I'm like, I didn't mean to do that. and it's like, why does it have to take over my whole screen? Well, now it's not going to. It'll pop up like a notification at the top for phone calls or FaceTime, or just a little swirling Siri bubble at the bottom. And if you don't want to take the call, the best part is you just flick it away. You just flick it off the top of the screen, and you don't have to take the call. I think that would be a great thing.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't think of that before, because that's what happens on the Mac. Now, when something comes in, it's up at the top and you just flip it if you don't want it, or you answer it. I don't know what took them so long to do it on the phone and on the iPad.
Right. And with the picture-in-picture, now when you take the call, like a FaceTime call, you can continue to do stuff on your phone while having the person's video continuing. So like sometimes I'll get a call from my mother or my brother, and they're asking for how to do something on the phone. And I'm like, okay, let me see. And then I'll switch out of FaceTime to use the app, and my video stops. And they're, and I can't see them. Well, if we have the picture-in-picture, you can continue having conversation while doing that thing. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Let's see what else. They have a translation app, which the Universal Translator is finally here, folks. Right? Star Trek's promise. It might not be that perfect, but it is interesting that we have now what Google had, I think, for a while in Android, which was a ability to do translations. The difference is this is an on-device translation, so it doesn't send anything out to the cloud, so it doesn't depend on you having a good internet connection or a good phone connection. It does it all on-device, which it's the on-device stuff that really amazes me.
I've always lived in a bilingual world, but I don't pick up languages very well. So when I was younger, it was my parents who could always translate for me. And as they left this world, my cousin was really the one translating for me, but now she has dementia. So now that will have something in my pocket, so that when I go into the Portuguese sector for something and I only know every ninth word they're saying, I'll be able to now open my phone and see it and say, great, now I can know what you're talking about, and here's the answer. I usually understand it better, but I just don't have an aptitude for languages. So this is going to be huge for me, especially doing genealogy.
What I would like to see is an addition on FaceTime that it would do a captioning for you too.
Ooh.
Because like Google right now in their Google Meet, you can turn on captioning, and it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. Because I use it with my hard of hearing brother and my son's girlfriend who's deaf, and that really helps us with the conversation.
Wow.
And so if they could do that with FaceTime, wow, that would really be a big deal.
That would be big. Hopefully that's in iOS 15, because that would be really great.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're thinking about it, because they're really good at accessibility.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, in fact, it was an accessibility. There's so much more in this coming than is talked about in these presentations. And one thing I saw people have discovered in the betas is that there's an accessibility feature where you'll be able to tap the back of your phone to do certain actions. So if you double tap the back of your phone, you can launch an app. Someone was saying now I can launch OK Google with a double tap on the back of my phone, which is kind of interesting. So I'm not sure I want to do that because I think accidental double taps is going to be a thing. But like even double tap to start the camera, just how quick would that would be? When the kids are doing something cute, tap tap, get it going right now. I think that would be really neat. So one thing that I think everybody uses, I mean, it's sort of the universal app now, is messaging and messages. And they made some interesting improvements for messages, and we could talk about some of the ones I think would be most applicable for our audience, for most of the folks out there. And the group messaging is very interesting. So, I think most families even couples have a group message, like an ongoing conversation. I have one with my siblings. I know Melanie has one with her family, and I have one with Melanie. And so having this group, one of the things it does is you can put you can create a group icon that represents the group, and you can put an icon on it, like even if you have like this is the group of friends who are going on vacation, and so you put like a tent as your emoji icon for that, and then you see all around it the images of all the people in that group. I think it's kind of neat. So you get group messaging, and in the group messaging you can now do inline replies. So like you can type someone's name and they get notified of that response. That's a response to them, and so not everybody has to get that response. Which, oh man, if I'm gonna really have to try to train my brothers and sisters to do that because they sometimes have one-to-one conversations in the group message that makes my phone go crazy while I'm trying to work. And then the other thing is pinned conversations, and this is great because you can now pin certain conversations with certain people to the top of the messages screen, so that, for example, my ongoing conversation with my wife is always at the top. I don't have to hunt for it. I don't have to scroll to find what last time we had our conversation. So some other features like that. What do you all think of the improvements to messages?
I really like the idea of the inline reply, where you're replying to just whatever somebody had said and not a general reply. And people said, huh, what's that?
Right.
There's a lot of good things in there.
Now, I agree with that, too, because it gets, especially if you're 5 or 6 down. I've experienced that when I go on conventions with people and we're in different parts of the building or property and we're all trying to connect and get together, and somebody says something and 12 lines later you answer and it's like, huh? Right. Everybody kind of goes, what? But also having a group like that, too, when you're going through your messages, you can find that group to respond quicker. Then, okay, is Steve with Melanie and Ashley, or is he with Ben and Craig? So it's I think this is going to help. I don't know who else has done this before, but of course Apple will do it better. And that's because Father Corey's not here for me to hear me say that.
Well, I do use an Android also, so I can kind of pitch in a little bit.
Okay, good.
Well, and speaking of Android, that's the downside is my one sister is the one sibling who's not on an iPhone, and so none of this works with a conversation with her. The pinning will work. I don't know if the group conversations will work. It might, but the inline replies and the mentions won't, which is kind of frustrating. And I think I conflated two things. So there's mentions where you type someone's name and they get the notification, and then there's inline reply where you can scroll up in the conversation and reply directly to a particular message, a particular comment, so that it connects what you're saying to what you're actually responding to. But those are sort of connected. The one thing in the messages improvements that doesn't really get me is Momochi. I'm sorry, I have one. I occasionally use the sticker out of just because it's there, but I don't really get Momochi. It's just not my thing.
I like Bitmoji better, only because Bitmojis look more like you. They take on your characteristic. All Memojis have the same nose. And as one who does not have a nose like everybody else in the world, it just doesn't make it look like me. So
yeah, yes, they are talking about making the features of the Memoji even more personalized, but still,
Well, the aging one would help me.
Well, sadly, myself as well.
Yeah, they
I'm
are
proud of it.
They are going to have older options, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't find myself like mugging for the phone and letting it my mouth do the animated version. I don't really see the point, and frankly, it can't see my eyes. My eyes are so deep set, I suppose. Or my face is too thick that it always looks like my eyes are closed in my emoji. So I don't bother with it.
I do use the stickers, but I don't do the live ones.
Yeah.
I just don't care for those.
Let's talk about maps, the improvements to maps. So a couple of things there. Cycling directions, which are limited into some certain cities right now that be coming to other cities. I honestly, I mean, that's not a thing for me, but for some that might be important. EV routing, if you have an electric vehicle, as more and more people do, it will plan your route with charging stations related to the particular kind of charger that you need. I think I like that idea. Like, they're using the technology that goes beyond just point A to point B and here's the traffic. They're now adding things like, hey, if you have an electric vehicle, you have certain concerns, and we're going to address those. So I like that. And they're going to have curated guides, which, if you travel at all, like if you go to a new city, there'll be guides to great places in town. Where do you eat? Where do you shop? Where do you go out for a good time? When we are able to do those things again someday.
Maybe.
So what do you think? I mean, anything that stands out to you in the in the Maps app?
I think it'll be as more people get electric vehicles. I think that'll be the one that will. Because as it is now, most of us who are gas guzzlers know where all the gas stations are, but you don't know where the electric, recharging stations are. And I think that's going to be something that people will really, really use.
Well, and not just the locations of the station, too. They are doing a thing that will estimate when you're going to need a recharge and show you the stations there. And I think that was really good.
Yeah, I wish I could do that with gas stations. Like when I'm on a long trip, there have been times when this is the where it wants me to go when I'm driving across Pennsylvania, but I'm going to need a gas station somewhere in there. I wish it would route me so that it would say, and this is the gas station you're going to stop at. I'd like to see them do it for us fossil fuel users as well, which might be harder because of different vehicles, but still.
Well, but I wonder if that's something they could do through CarPlay.
Yes.
If you did it through CarPlay, and more cars are getting CarPlay now, it might be something they could actually accomplish.
And help cars be more fuel efficient by routing them appropriately. I think that's a good idea. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, Austin being a bicycling city, I think that's going to be coming up pretty soon for Austin to be joined in there. And that, for a lot of people here, is a big deal.
Yep.
So
that's good.
Not me personally.
So speaking of CarPlay, they mentioned something that had been talked about in rumors for a while, something called car keys. And it's basically if you own a high-end BMW or Ford, I'm not even sure of the Ford yet, but at least they showed off a BMW with it where your phone becomes your key, your digital key. And so you take your phone out of your pocket, you Face ID unlock it, you hold it up to the door handle, it unlocks the door. You get in, you put it on the charging mat in the car, and then you press the start button, and it starts the car. And that's all well and good. But even more interesting is that you can also share your car keys with someone, and so you can send a digital key to their phone, which is interesting. If more people, as long as, again, this is really, if people own an iPhone, that becomes interesting. If they have an Android, it's not as useful. And so it's yet another reason to make sure that everybody in your life has an iPhone like you do, I guess.
But I think the car manufacturers are not going to like that because they love to get more money for the extra car keys. My husband's car came with only one car key. And they basically told him, if you want another one, it's going to cost you $350.
It's crazy.
Right. So when I have to drive his car, he actually has to physically give me the key. Now with something like this, that may change things up. And I think that I have a feeling the car manufacturers are going to try to buck this on every turn.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I think I think it's like CarPlay. I think at first only a few went with it, but more and more are coming along as consumers have said, this is the thing I want, and I'll make this part of my buying decision. And hopefully, if people start making this as part of their buying decision, that this opportunity to have this. But you're right. When it comes down to other companies having to change in order for us to be able to get the functionality, that's the stuff I'm a little less optimistic about getting the full promise from it. And cars are one of those.
Well, and I can see where Android they might be pushing to get this on Android as well, the car manufacturers. Yeah. And then you have the security issues because it's not as tightly secured as the Apple environment.
That's right.
So I can see a lot of cars being driven away.
Right.
Inadvertently.
So, and then for iPad gets, I think, pretty much all of this. As in addition, they get some visual refinements, some design changes. I didn't really think that was that big a deal. And Apple Pencil, though, gets more handwriting support. I like the idea of some third-party keyboards have had this where you could, and I forget the name of it, but it was a really good one where you could handwrite on the screen and it would translate it into text that just as if you typed it. And so now Apple has this built in, they call it Scribble. So you could just tap on they use the example of like the Safari address bar. You just tap on the Safari address bar and then write google.com, and it will go, and then it will translate that to the text google.com, and you can go there. So I like this idea of being able to handwrite things. It recognizes it as groups of text. One thing I noticed they didn't do was show that you could edit the text afterward. You know what I mean? You can move the text as a whole. You can click it and draw around it and drag it around and insert things in between, in between like lines of text. But I didn't see them like putting it in between letters of your handwriting or like selecting and changing things. So I don't think it's quite, unless they just didn't demonstrate it, but I don't think it's quite at that level yet. But what do you think of this?
Well, some of the handwriting apps do have that capability of making edit changes in there. So I would think, maybe they just didn't mention it.
And for me to be able to use my pencil more, that would be really good, because I bought this pencil to use for a couple of things and that's it. So I'd like to get a little bit more use and be able to being able to write in the address bars and things like that. Or I think it's going to make my pencil a lot more useful.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a pain and a half to be able to, you start with the pencil and then you got to put it down and get the keyboard out, and that transition's going to be so much smoother.
Right. And I saw someone mention, like, as of now, like with this change, the iPad has had almost all of its inputs updated. It's got the new keyboard. It's got the new pencil options. I mean, what was the third? There was a third thing.
They showed a trackpad.
The trackpad and mouse support too. Yeah. I mean, there's all these new. They've really refined the way that you interact with your iPad beyond the touchscreen, which I think is interesting that they keep iterating on it. So it's interesting to see where the iPad is going. And I love my Apple Pencil. I use it in the GoodNotes app. I mean, without the GoodNotes app, I'm not sure I would have much use for the Apple Pencil at all, but GoodNotes is a fantastic app. One of these days I'll make it my pick of the week and talk more about it then. But I'm excited to see the pencil changes and updates. Let's move on to, is there anything I didn't mention about iOS or iPadOS that you think I should have, or that folks should know about? Because I think it pretty much hit most of the high points. And we'll come back to the HomeKit stuff when we talk about tvOS, because they kind of group those together. But first, let's talk about watchOS. There's a lot of fitness stuff in there, but I'm not all that interested in the dance activity stuff that they showed.
Oh, why not?
You don't want, no one wants to see that. But so a couple of things they talked about were, you'll now be able to have shareable watch faces. So if you put together a particularly nice set of complications, you could share that with folks. I'm not sure that's a big deal. What I'd like to see is custom watch faces that people could come up with. We've been talking about that for a long time, but I don't know
I think they're
that's
still
coming.
staying away from that. They're at least putting the complications together in different configurations and sharing that. I think that might be as far as customizable watch faces as we're going to get. But since I don't have a watch that does that yet, but we'll be getting one for my birthday, I'm curious to see what complications do and how that all works together. So this is more options is better for me.
Yeah, they certainly enhance the complications from what they are now. It was just a fixed position and it was just a little tiny bit. And I think they're making it more like the widgets, that you can have different sizes and different things from that app on there, and maybe things you don't use are buried rather than being on that complication. Yeah,
I do like the idea of multiple complications from the same app on the same face. That is something I've run into where I want this from this app and that from that app, so I got to put them on two different faces and swipe back and forth. It's kind of annoying, but I like that idea.
And the sleep tracking is something I'm glad that they're building into it now. I've had some sleep tracking apps, but to have that built in would be really nice because, you were talking about the time sensitive things. When I get up in the morning, that sleep tracking app tells me how long I slept and how much, restlessness versus deep sleep I've had. And so that would be one of the natural things for them to include on this.
I have a problem wearing my watch to bed.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could keep that on all night. I mean, is it?
Oh, it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you?
No, and I put it, they have the do on the Watch 5, you've got it so it can be totally dark and do not disturb. So it doesn't come on unless you actually tap on it.
Okay.
And when I first got it, that was a problem for my partner. Waking up in the middle of the night, he moved to the other room a couple times.
I can picture that.
But I usually put it on the charger for about an hour before I go to bed. It's fine all night. And while I'm taking my shower, it's on the charger again. And that leaves me for 24 hours. So I keep it on all night.
Okay.
So the new sleep tracking, it will automatically go into when it goes into sleep mode, it automatically goes into the don't light up at all mode, so the dark mode.
Right, I like that.
And it also they've added some things like cool down or wind down mode. So this is the time I'm going to go to bed every night. And then it's 45 minutes beforehand, it'll start to give you notifications like, well, now it's time to wind down. Maybe you should consider turning off any screens and, relaxing and that sort of thing to help you get ready for a good night's sleep, which I think is interesting.
It's interesting, but my personality would say, don't tell me what to do and ignore that and just keep shouting at it.
I agree with you, Pat. I'm the same way because I'm always doing things right up to bed. So it's like, don't tell me I got to start slowing down now. No.
Well, and maybe that's what they're saying would be best for me, but that's not what I've been doing my 74 years. So
if y'all want to have some good discussion of how to get a good night's sleep, you listen to a recent episode of Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World at sqpn.com/mysterious, or I'll put the link in the show notes. And Jimmy goes into detail about how to get a good night's sleep and the mystery
that
of sleep.
That includes winding down.
Well, some of it does, yes. The other thing I'll mention is speaking of wearing something to bed, I have a blog post that I'll put a link to in my in the show notes as well, about the time that my Fitbit sent me to the hospital for the weekend, and I almost ended up in an MRI machine because I rested my head on my wrist with my Fitbit on it, and it caused the nerves in my face to go dead. Or numb. They went numb, and we were trying to figure out for 24 hours what it was, and that's what it was. But that's if you're interested, go click the link. I do like this is a feature of the moment, the hand washing detection.
Oh yeah.
So they use some machine learning smarts to detect when you're washing your hands, the motion of your hands, the sound of soap, the squishiness of soap, and the sound of running water all says, oh, you're washing your hands. And then it starts a cute little animated soap bubble timer. And when it gets to the end, it gives you a little nice feedback. If you stop too early, it encourages you to continue washing. So I thought that was amusing. I'm not sure it's let me just say, there are some people I know who do need to spend more time washing their hands. Some young boys who are very quick out of the bathroom. Let's just say before get back in there and wash a little longer.
They're not wearing a Apple Watch.
No, they're not. They're not. So that's when is the one for the kids.
But I have met adults that I respected and really liked, and a conference or something and find out, no, they are not hand washers. And that kind of gets you a little creeped out.
Yes.
Nowadays, yes, it does.
Especially
but
now.
I thought that was a very cute feature. And now I really have to get a watch 5.
That's right.
I said, that's it. I need it.
So, and then there's some fitness. They're updating the Activities app, making a fitness app, and some other things like that. So some things there.
I noticed that they said that the sleep tracking thing was going to be available on the iPhone as well, and instead of just on the watch. And I was wondering how they were going to do that. But,
how do you
that's
do
another
that?
topic.
I think you have. I mean, I think people in even now when they have third-party sleep tracking apps, they slide it under the pillow, like they just leave it on the bed.
I did that in the past. Yeah. But it's interesting that they're emphasizing that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I find that it gets the phone very warm.
Yes.
If I happen to fall asleep listening to, say I'm having a particularly bad night sleeping and I put on some sleepy time music and I put it under my pillow, when I wake up in the morning, that thing's hot.
Yeah.
I mean, and that
true.
makes me nervous.
Yeah. I do not like it when I wake up, when I find my phone to be very hot like that. Let's talk about tvOS and HomeKit. The HomeKit will get some new additions, things like adaptive lighting, so it adjusts the color temperature throughout the day according to your preferences, warmer at night and cooler during the day. They're going to have now on-device facial recognition for HomeKit compatible doorbells and security cameras, which is something nice that the Google, the Nest Cams have. The Ring does not yet have, I don't think. They are moving some of your most used controls to Control Center, which is going to be nice. We often want to adjust the lights in the house or lock the front door, and you have to open up the Home app and go all the way to find it there. It would be nice to have it like just in Control Center or as a home screen widget, perhaps, would be a nice addition. And there's something about they're going to be working on a new smart home standard with companies like Google and Zigbee and Amazon. It once again raises the hopes that my Ring cameras will eventually be HomeKit compatible. I've been hoping for years now. Maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, that was the one announcement or that reference there that made me excited because they showed Amazon and Google on the screen, on that thing, as if, well, maybe we can get all of these things, controlled through one. Right now, I've got a Google Home app, and it would be nice to have all the Apple stuff and the Google stuff in one place.
Yes, I agree. Because I've got a Nest thermostat, I've got Ring cameras, I've got Hue bulbs that are on my HomeKit. I just want it all to work together.
Yeah, and see, we're getting a little. The A-ladies in my house are not having fun right now. I don't know what it is with us. Maybe they're just older models of Echoes, but I'd love to move to a HomePod. But if I can't get what I'm doing now with the A-lady into HomePod, then I have to wait.
Right.
I really don't want to get another one. But
yeah, I agree. I just wanted them to work together and to work better. So, and then
to all play nicely.
Yes, let's all play nicely together. tvOS, they're bringing multi-user Apple Arcade support, which, if for kids is great because my kids right now, they're always fighting over who is using whose saved game from Sneaky Sasquatch on their iPad. So what I want is multi-user on iPad. Like I want the same thing where you can have this is my iPad session for my say Khan Academy school stuff and my Zoom login and that sort of stuff, and then the kids can have each kid can have their own. So come into the tvOS. Hopefully, the multi-user comes to the iPad. Then also they mentioned picture-in-picture. So if you have a HomeKit compatible doorbell, it will pop up when someone rings the doorbell. It'll pop up in a little picture on the side. If you're watching TV, it'll pop up on the side, and you'll see who's there. And then you could, with one button, pause the show and bring it full screen and talk to the person. I like that idea.
What I'd really like to see in tvOS is to be able to be watching one app, but then go to another app and go look for something. Because I have YouTube TV.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can't find anything. Okay, I'd like to go over to Netflix and see what's on it, but I'd still like to be watching YouTube TV. I'd like to see that.
Picture in picture with multiple apps. Yeah.
With multiple apps, yeah.
I think that's they that was mentioned, but I'd have to go back and double check. And also 3D sound using AirPods Pro. Like today, and I didn't even realize you can use AirPods to listen to your Apple TV. But if you have AirPods Pro, you'll be able to have 3D sound, surround sound in your AirPods, which is
that
pretty
appeals to me because I do use my AirPods for the Apple TV, especially at night when my husband's asleep. If I don't want to wake him, I'm listening to it through there. But that's going to make me want to buy the AirPods Pro. Apple, just take my money.
Well, didn't they announce somewhere that they were going to be doing a headset version of the AirPods? Because I don't like the little AirPods.
Yeah.
But just to have a headset that was the same technology, I think seemed like I thought that was coming at some point.
I think the Beats might be having something like a Beats Pro version of the AirPods Pro, like has some of the same technology. I think I saw something about that, but I don't remember exactly. So let's move on to talk about Mac OS. We've now turned the dial to 11. That's right. We're now Mac OS 11 Big Sur, California. So a couple of things, the visual design changes. It's going to look a lot more like iOS. These two operating systems, or three really, if you include iPhone and iPad, look a lot more similar as time goes on. There's a new notification center. So instead of that bar coming in from the right side of the screen, it sort of pops down like on your iPhone and your iPad. Control center's the same way. So you click the button on the menu bar and it pops down, and it looks very much like the control center on your phone or your iPad. They have some improvements to Safari, more privacy reports. So there's a button to click, and it will tell you about what kind of trackers this particular website has running. I like the idea that you can give extensions. Some of us have many extensions running in our browsers. Extensions you can give them permission per site. Like this extension is only to be used on, say, Google Docs, the google.com site, or only on Amazon. I want this to be active. And that way it's not, reading all your traffic and looking at all the things you do just per site or by time. Like, I want to give this a permission for the next hour or day or something along those lines. So that's good. Messages gets some of the new features that iOS has, so a little more parity for the Messages app on the Mac, which is good, including groups and inline reply and that sort of thing. And then the Mac App Store they're implementing easy to read privacy policies, which again their privacy focus is good. But other than that, there didn't seem to be a ton of new features for Mac OS. What do y'all think of this?
I don't know if it's a lot of change. I think number one, the visual change is going to be big enough for some folks.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's not that big a problem. I know for my husband, who is so used to seeing things a certain way, when you change a screen on him that he sees all the time, for the first month, it's like, where is this thing? I can't find it. So I think that's going to be big enough. The other things are, I think, are going to take some time too, because we're not used to like going up and clicking the time and having the notifications drop down. We're not used to being put things up in the menu bar. I think that's going to be some changes, but I think what they're getting ready for is what we're going to talk about next, is the change in processors. Right. And that's what they're starting to get ready for. So to us, who are still going to have Intel processors for a while, it's going to be enough for us to, enough new stuff, but enough old stuff to keep us happy.
Yeah. Yeah, the first thing that when he said this is going to be a whole new operating system, this is going to be all I could think of is my 80-year-olds and saying, no, not too much change all at once. This is going to kill them. But when I saw that, the actual visual changes and everything in there and the Safari stuff, that's not huge, and it is more like the phone. So, I'm hoping that, the whole big new operating system is the preface for using their processors. That's more what the architecture is about, not what's visually being done.
I think that's when they say all new, it's really more of it's all new under the hood, and it's going to look a lot more like your iPad and your phone and your iPhone, which I think for some people is a good thing. Who started this Apple journey with a phone or a tablet and have picked up a Mac along the way. That makes it easier for them because it's a familiar design language and things will work similar.
Yeah, and my husband and I are both in the older senior category, and my husband does appreciate when everything looks alike, so he can go from phone to iPad to Mac and know that looks like this looks like that, and I don't have to figure out that it isn't what it's supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah, that I think is a big goal that they've got, and I think it's great, that part.
And let's move to the big topic, and the design language change to make it look more like iOS is there because Macs, and this is I think less important for most people, frankly, but Macs are moving their CPU from Intel technology to ARM technology. And the reason that's a big deal is Apple already designs its own CPUs, its own computer brains under the ARM technology for iPhones and iPads. So they've already been doing that. And these are the chip in the iPhone 11 and in the latest iPad Pros are desktop class. You could put those into a desktop computer and they would work really well. They would work fine. So they're going to be transitioning all of their products they sell over the next 2 years to ARM processors. They'll be faster. There'll be no more waiting for Intel. One of the big problems is Intel, their ability to innovate and make faster and better chips has slowed down over the years. And that's held Apple back. It's held back some of the things they want to do for software. So the big thing I think that most people care about is you'll be able to run iOS apps on your Mac natively when you have a new ARM-based Mac, and that's the key thing. This is not true of any Mac that you've bought up to the end of this year, say. But on the new Macs that are coming, you'll be able to install an iPad app or a phone app onto your Mac, and it will just work because they're running the same fundamental hardware and the basic operating system. So what do y'all think of that? Is that a big deal?
It's exciting. I'm not sure most of my customers will think of it as that exciting, but from a techie point of view, hey, that's pretty cool. In fact, they showed that all of the demos that they were doing with the Mac OS and everything was all being actually run with the iPad software,
right?
On those new machines. And I thought, well, that's really amazing. That they could say one thing goes everywhere.
Yeah, I agree. My husband and I just ended up getting new computers, so it's going to be another 6 years before. But it may not, because I was watching the video. I was watching and noticing that looked like a little Mac Mini that he was running everything off of.
The developer's Mini.
Yeah, it's a developer kit. Yeah.
And yeah, I would love to. The techie in me wants to get her hands on one of those for the house. But because then that would make sense to me, a stationary one at home that can run all different kinds of apps. That to me it would be a great thing. So I see this. I feel bad because Intel has been a very sturdy product, but they've also dragged their feet.
Yeah.
In their architectures, and they've kept Apple back, I think. And that's what I've heard that for a couple of years now from people who know about this stuff better than I do. They just keep saying they've been dragging their feet. So it doesn't surprise me that Apple finally said, we're going to do this. If we're making them now for, the iPad and the iPhone, why don't we just make them for the computers?
And that Apple's been planning this for years. They've had these ARM-based Macs in the lab. I mean, the fact that they're able to do this transition in 2 years, they could do it tomorrow, but I think they're doing it over 2 years in order to get developers on board. The little software is going to be fine, but things like Photoshop and Adobe Premiere and these big, heavy duty pro apps are going to need time to transition, to be rewritten, and to take advantage of these processors. But I'm excited to see. I think the first Mac out the door will be some kind of MacBook, and it'll probably not be great, just to be honest. But after that, like, maybe next spring, I'm thinking there's probably an iMac refresh coming in not too long. Those will probably be very interesting, and I'll be very interested to see how they work. And one of the things I think is really interesting is they talked about this Rosetta 2, this technology that allows you to run your current Intel-based apps on the new ones. And what happens is in the old days when we transitioned from PowerPC to Intel, we had Rosetta, and it was while it was running, it was doing the translation, the compatibility, which made things slow. You two probably remember how slow those compatible apps were. This does the translation, the change, the conversion at installation. So it converts it when you install the app, and so from that point on, that app is always running natively. I think it's fascinating, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. I could always use a faster Mac to do my audio editing, that's for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Well, maybe one of those little Mac Mini developers one could be your because I think they had like 32, 64 gigabytes of memory, and there were huge hard drives on those things.
Hard to get though. They're limiting them. Frank,
at the moment, yes, but maybe in the future.
Well, when they tell you your Mac is now vintage, you have to start to think about change.
That's right.
Obsolete's a worse word.
Right, but mine went vintage this year. So it's like, okay, that gives me 1 or 2 more years on an operating system before they tell me, so sorry, no more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one of the things that we didn't get that I was expecting to see, and it's somewhat understandable given that it's mostly hardware, is these trackers that have been heard about since last fall, really. The tile trackers that allow you to you put it on a piece of hardware, or just you put it on an object, and it will track it in the Find My app, just like you do with Find My Phone and Find My iPad and Find My Mac. But Apple did add an API that lets third parties like Tile be in the Find My app, which I think is kind of neat. I think
that would be cool.
Yeah. Hopefully Tile and the others, because I think even Tile was threatening to sue Apple for excluding them. So that might be why they did it, for monopolistic practices. So hopefully they will take advantage of this and be in the one place where you can track everything. So anything that you thought we would see that we didn't, or anything you're disappointed we didn't see, aside from hardware?
I think it was mostly hardware for me because we were just in the market right now. And I said to my husband, let's wait and see what's going to happen. And when it didn't happen, I was like, okay, fine, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. I think we got a lot. There was a lot there, and it's hard to complain that we didn't get more. So I'm very happy. I'm very much looking forward to when they release it sometime this fall. That usually means like late October to November. Given the current situation, all bets are off on when anything's going to happen anymore. But will be interesting to see.
Well, it was a little different to see just one person doing a presentation, and no crowds and all that. That was really a weird feeling. But I did like the zooming around the campus and from place to place. And I liked the fact that when they went to the new ARM processing stuff, that was an undisclosed location that you went through the tunnels to see the picture of where it was.
Yes.
And I love that.
And they didn't lose their sense of humor through the whole thing either, because of course when they name the Mac OS, it's always a big line, and it was the same thing this year where they made a joke out of it. And Craig Federighi he should have been a stand-up in another life. Yes. He must have been a stand-up in another life, I should say.
Yeah, he was. That was funny. It was something about the marketing team going on a drug-fueled trip.
Vision Quest. Yes.
Vision Quest. That was funny. Awesome. So let's wrap things up. This is a nice long episode to talk about all these things, but let's wrap things up with some picks of the week, because I just love that part of the show, and I'm hoping listeners do too. And so let's go to that. Pat, what is your pick this week?
Well, it's a weird one. I've had a lot of people that have been trying to do Zoom during this time, and a lot of people have no cameras and no webcams on their desktops because they're not Apple. And so what I found was a lot of people have a lot of old laptops that would have a camera and a microphone, but they're, Windows XP and Windows 7. And so what I did is I took Ubuntu, which is a real easy to install Linux distribution, and I've got it on a thumb drive, and all I do is I plug it in, tell it to install it, and ask it to bring down a couple of things that are now all GUI. You don't have to type anything anymore to go get different programs. And now I've got little machines that can do Google Meet and Zoom and Chrome and Firefox. Really good, really nice for inexpensive.
That's a great idea.
So I just wanted to mention that is available.
And some people feel icky about installing Zoom on their main computer too. So, because they're worried about the ethics of the company. And so this would be nice where you have a dedicated, old, inexpensive laptop that's just got Ubuntu in it and Zoom, and that's that. I think that's a great idea. Excellent. And Joanne, what's your pick this week?
Well, this is one that I received a couple of, I want to say about 4 weeks ago, that I was supposed to get in February, but of course COVID-19 kind of killed that, on top of other things. But this is the Hyperjuice world's first 100-watt USB-C charger. And it charges 4 different devices at the same time, 2 in USB-C and 2 in USB-A.
Wow.
So this is your go-to when you go on vacation. But hark, when 2 of us were working here in the house during the crisis and we had to keep charging our devices, it came in real handy because you can do 4 devices at the same time. And now that we have 2 computers that are both coming USB-C chargers, this is what we'll take with us. Because yes, the Apple chargers are great, and I have a lot of them. But when you go anywhere, it's always a single charger for a single.
Right. There's only one outlet.
Single device.
Yeah.
This is 4. And it comes with, it's about credit card size. It's really credit card size. And it has the pull down plug, but it also comes with all of the universal plugs for worldwide travel.
Nice.
So you get all of them. And I got it as a Kickstarter, all right, for $59. But now this is interesting because it's still on Kickstarter, but when you go to pre-order now, it goes to Indiegogo.
Okay.
And it's $69.99. So they've gone up. So they did their first round. This must be their 3rd round or something. But I'll tell you, so far it has worked very, very well. We used it here when we had 2 offices running, and I've taken it now to my office back at the parishes, and I'm in love with it. It just does it doesn't get too hot, and you're better off if you use the USB-C. You'll get the faster charge, but still you have to have the right connection also. So if you're using it on an iPhone, make sure you have the USB-C to Lightning.
I just bought one for that very reason.
Yes, exactly. There you'll get the fast charge. If you try to put it on the USB-A, you get the regular charge. 18 watts, but you get the regular charge.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it is, especially if you have 2 laptops, it says it'll charge 2 15-inch or 16-inch MacBook Pros simultaneously. That's pretty awesome.
And you have to remember, it's 100 watts for the whole thing. So if you're putting 2 MacBook Pros on it, each of them get 50 watts.
Right. But that's plenty. Yeah.
That's more than plenty when you're trying to do that at the same time.
Yeah. Awesome. Very good. So my pick is an analog piece of technology, but it's just a nice piece of design that I want to highlight, and it comes really handy. It's called the Hero Clip, and what it is, it's like a carabiner. It's a carabiner clip, but with something else attached to it. It's got a hook that folds over the top, and then you can unfold, and so you can use it to hang stuff off of it just about anywhere. And one of the things I like to do is I keep one on my laptop bag, and I don't like to leave my bag like laying on the floor when I go out to a restaurant or something like that. Earlier, when we did such things, when we went to like coffee shops and worked, or when I'm hiking and I don't want to leave it in the dirt. So what I do is I hook the carabiner through a loop, and then I put the hook over the edge of a table or over a bench. Or if I'm hanging out in my hammock in the backyard, I'll put my water bottle on it and hang it off of there. And it folds up, fits in your pocket, comes in three different sizes, medium, small, and mini, which I think is funny because it's like a Starbucks coffee. It's a large. Come on, just call it a large. But medium, small, and mini. The medium is good size. It'll hold up to 60 pounds, they say. The mini is great for your car keys. It's really small and light. They're not cheap, but they're like the biggest one is like $20. But they're very durable. They're well built, and I'm happy to have a couple of different sizes of them. So that's the Hero Clip. So let's wrap things up there. I want to first take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Stephen G., Daniel P., Ben H., Peter M., and Carl S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of Apple's announcements and our discussion of them? Was there a feature that you thought was pretty interesting that we missed, or do you have another take on it than we do? I would love to hear from you. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Or send an email to technology@sqpn.com. And I'll put links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the SQPN YouTube channel, where you should make sure to hit the bell to get notifications. Until next time, Pat Scott, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Technology.
It was fun as always.
Joanne Mercier, thank you as well.
Thank you, and stay safe.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.